She complained about the smell from my barbecue and had me reported for a hazardous burn. The officer apologized, said it was a false call. That night, she had guests over. Her grill was out back, and when she opened it, she found what I left inside: no flames, just something she couldn't explain. I'm a 62-year-old guy living in a quiet neighborhood near Boise, Idaho. I retired early after running my HVAC company for nearly 30 years. These days, I spend most of my time working on my house, fixing things, and barbecuing in my backyard. It's the only hobby I've really held on to. I'm not loud. I'm not messy. I take care of my property. People here know me as the guy who grills every Saturday and minds his own business. Then Cheryl moved in. She bought the place directly behind mine about 8 months ago. Said she came from somewhere in California. I overheard her telling our HOA lady how everything here smells like trees and old houses. That should have been a clue. She seemed polite at first, a little too chatty, always smiling with her little wine glass in hand. But there was something off. She didn't really listen when people talked. Just waited for her turn to say something louder. The first run-in happened 2 weeks after she moved in. It was a warm Saturday in early June. I was smoking ribs like I always do. Not a huge party. Just me, some music playing low, a drink in hand, and the smell of seasoned hickory wood. I've been using the same smoker for years. I clean it. I maintain it. It's not some cheap fire pit. I was basting the ribs when I heard her heels clack up my driveway. She came around the corner with that same fake smile, holding a half glass of white wine. "Hi there. I just wanted to say, the smoke is kind of, well, intense," she said, waving her hand in front of her nose. "It's blowing right into my yard and my dog's been sneezing nonstop." I paused, took off my gloves and said, "Sorry about that. I'm just cooking. It'll be done soon." She gave a little laugh that didn't feel right. No, it's okay. Just, maybe not every weekend, yeah." She walked off before I could answer. I let it go. People get weird about smells sometimes. I figured she'd get used to it. But the next weekend, I was just starting to grill some chicken thighs. No smoking, just coals and grill marks, when a red fire truck rolled up in front of my house. 2 firefighters came out, helmets and all, walking with a purpose. I stepped out front, confused. One of them said they'd received a report of a hazardous open burn. I said, "All I'm doing is grilling. It's a regular backyard grill." They followed me to the backyard, looked at everything. One of them even laughed. "This is a false call," he said, waving toward my setup. "You're good." The other guy looked over the fence. Cheryl's white sun hat peeked above her bushes. "She call this in?" I asked. The first guy just shrugged. "We get a few of these around here. Some neighbors don't like barbecue. Not your fault." He handed me a copy of the report, but said there was no fine, no problem. That bugged me. I don't like being treated like I'm reckless when I go out of my way to be responsible. But I still didn't say anything. That night, Cheryl had guests over. I saw them through my kitchen window. 5 or 6 people, all in pastel clothes, sipping wine and talking about some fundraiser. Cheryl showed off her backyard setup, string lights, deck furniture, and a shiny stainless steel gas grill. Real high-end. She was opening the grill lid and talking to someone like it was a trophy. That's when I got the idea. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to get petty. But I wanted her to know she'd picked the wrong neighbor. So I made a plan. The next day, I drove out to a small butcher shop I used to work with back in my HVAC days. Told the guy I needed something different. Something he'd normally toss. He wrapped up 2 pounds of tripe, raw cow stomach. I took it home and left it in a sealed container in my garage, no fridge. For 2 days. By the 3rd day, the smell was enough to make me gag. It was thick and sour, like rot and chemicals mixed together. That afternoon, I waited, watched from the corner of my window. Around 2 p.m., Cheryl's car pulled out of her driveway. She was gone. No one else around. I put on gloves, slipped through the narrow spot behind our fence. There's a panel that doesn't lock right. It's barely noticeable. Her grill was spotless. She clearly kept it clean. I opened the lid, placed the container of spoiled tripe in a disposable foil pan, and set it right in the middle. Didn't touch anything else. Didn't break anything. I closed the lid and walked away. That night, she had guests again. I could hear them laughing, clinking glasses. The usual music. Then I heard it. The grill opened. And right after that, total silence. Then Cheryl's voice, sharp and loud. "What the hell is that smell?" One of her guests gagged. Someone else said, "Oh my God, is something dead in there?" The lid slammed shut hard enough to echo across the yards. No one laughed after that. I stood at my kitchen sink, drinking water, trying not to smile. She never said a word to me, never looked at me. Her friends stopped coming by. That shiny grill stayed closed for weeks. And every Saturday since, I still fire up my smoker. About 2 weeks later, I got a letter from the HOA. Not an email, not a phone call. A printed letter, signed and sealed. It said there had been a complaint of backyard misconduct, and I was being given a formal warning. Something about neighbor intimidation and unsanitary materials on private property. No real details, just vague language and a veiled threat that further incidents may result in fines or board action. I stood in my kitchen holding that letter, heart thumping slow and cold. I knew damn well who sent it. Cheryl. Thing is, the HOA president is one of those guys who loves to feel important. And Cheryl had him wrapped around her finger from the beginning. She probably told him some story about a disgusting prank or a targeted act.
Called ve deneyedik.
I could have called and defended myself, but I didn't. Instead, I waited. Because what she didn't know is that I'd installed cameras, cheap ones, tucked into birdhouses and tree trunks. Not to watch her, exactly. But because a few years ago some neighborhood kid stole my tools, and I decided to be cautious. One of those cameras faced the exact corner where our properties nearly touched. And I had footage, clear as day, of Cheryl sneaking into my yard. It was about a week before the barbecue incident. Around 9 p.m., she walked through the gap in the fence, holding a flashlight. Looked around for about a minute, peeking at my smoker, my setup, then walked back through. I watched it twice to be sure. There was no reason for her to be there. That changed things. I printed stills from the footage. 3 of them. Taped them to the second letter I received from the HOA. A final warning this time. I dropped it right in the president's mailbox. Didn't say a word. 3 days later, he showed up at my door. No warning. "Hey, wanted to say we're dropping the complaint. And, Cheryl's taken a step back from the board." He wouldn't meet my eyes. Just kept scratching the back of his neck. "Is that so?" I said, arms crossed.
"Yeah."
"Look, no hard feelings, right? Just a misunderstanding." I nodded. Didn't invite him in. That weekend, Cheryl's lights were off. Her car didn't move for 2 days. But then something weird happened. On Tuesday morning, I opened my back gate to pull out the trash, and I saw something on my lawn, right in the middle of the grass.
It was a single, raw chicken breast.
No note, no packaging, just lying there, cold and pale, like someone had dropped it from the sky. It felt deliberate. I checked my cameras again, but this time nothing. Either she waited until the battery died, or came from a blind spot. But that's when I knew it wasn't over for her. She wasn't trying to get me fined anymore. She was trying to rattle me. That raw chicken breast sat in my trash for a day before I tossed it. I didn't want to touch it at first. Kept thinking maybe it was a joke. A sick one. Or maybe she was trying to provoke me, make me paranoid. And I'll admit, for a minute it worked. I started checking my backyard more often. Made sure the gates were locked. Cleared out the camera SD cards, bought extras, even upgraded the angle on the one near the fence line. But nothing happened. For a week, everything was quiet. Then I got a knock on my door. It was mid-morning. I opened it to find Cheryl standing there. She looked different, tired, like she hadn't slept. No wine glass this time.
No shunat.
Just her holding a brown folder with shaking hands. "I need to talk to you," she said. I didn't say anything. Just stepped aside. She walked in like she'd rehearsed it, sat on the edge of my couch, folder in her lap, tapping it with one finger. "I'm not crazy," she said. "But I think someone's messing with me now." I raised an eyebrow. She opened the folder. Inside were pictures, photos of her grill, her yard, even her car. Some were printed.
Some were just Polaroids.
One showed her standing in her own driveway, back turned to the camera. Another was of her trash bins, taken at night. "I found these in my mailbox," she said, eyes wide.
No envelope.
"Just dumped in there. Last week." I took a breath. "So, why bring them to me?" She hesitated. "Because I thought you'd be the one to understand." That's when it hit me. This wasn't just neighbor warfare anymore.
Someone else was involved.
I took one of the photos. It was grainy, but the angle was familiar. I realized it looked like it came from my side of the fence, but higher, like from a window. Not mine. My neighbor on the other side, 2 doors down, Mark. Retired army guy. Real quiet. Always working in his garage. He once told me Cheryl let her dog crap on his yard, twice, and never picked it up. He told her off. Loudly. Then a few months later, someone slashed 2 of his tires. That was before she ever came to my yard. And now here she was sitting on my couch, acting like the victim. Acting like we were in this together. I stood up. "Let me see that folder again." She hesitated, but handed it to me.
I flipped through it slower this time.
One photo caught my attention. There was a reflection in the glass of her sliding door. Barely visible. A shape. A person. Standing in her backyard.
But it wasn't me.
Wasn't Mark either. The build was smaller. Narrow shoulders. Long hair.
There was someone else involved.
And Cheryl didn't know it yet. That photo, it kept pulling at me. The reflection in the sliding door didn't make sense. Someone had been standing there, watching her, maybe even taking those pictures. And Cheryl had no idea. She was still sitting on my couch, eyes darting between me and the folder. "Do you know who it could be?" she asked. "No," I said, but I kept my eyes on that reflection. "When did you first find these?" She swallowed hard. "Last Monday. So right after the raw chicken showed up in my yard." Something wasn't adding up. I walked her out. Told her I'd take a closer look, maybe check my footage. She nodded, but her hands were shaking. For the first time, I saw her not as this wine-drinking HOA brown-noser, but just a woman who might be way over her head. After she left, I locked my door and sat down at my laptop. I pulled up the most recent files from my cameras. I rewound to the night before she found the photos. Nothing unusual. Then I skipped back another night. That's when I saw it. 2:13 a.m. Someone coming through the narrow gap in the fence. Not Cheryl. Not me. Not Mark. This person was smaller. Hoodie, backpack. Moving fast, low to the ground. They walked into my yard first.
Paused.
Then went toward Cheryl's side. Out of frame. 2 minutes later, they came back, hands empty. I paused and zoomed in. Couldn't see their face. But their shoes, bright white soles, worn out black canvas. I remembered seeing those shoes once before. There's a teenage girl who lives at the corner of our street. Her name's Natalie. Lives with her grandmother. Kind of quiet. Walks her dog past my place sometimes, always with those same sneakers. White soles, black canvas, torn at the toe. She'd smiled once, but never said a word. I never thought much of her. But now I couldn't stop thinking. Why would a teenage girl be sneaking around at night? Why put raw meat in my yard and photos in Cheryl's mailbox? Unless... I pulled up one more video from 3 weeks ago. Around the time Cheryl first had guests over, and I left that spoiled tripe in her grill. 1:49 a.m. A figure walking from the corner house.
Hoodie.
Same shoes. They came right up to Cheryl's back gate.
Didn't go in.
Just stood there for a long time, watching, then turned and walked away. It didn't feel like a prank anymore. It felt like someone was playing all of us. I didn't sleep that night. My backyard, once my quiet escape, now felt like a stage. And someone else was pulling the strings. The next morning I took a walk. Slow, casual. I made sure to pass Natalie's place. Her grandmother's house was small, brick, with a wooden porch swing that always creaked in the wind. I noticed a dog bowl by the steps, some cracked pots, and a mailbox that leaned slightly to the left. But something was different. There was a camera mounted under the porch roof. Not big. One of those cheap Wi-Fi ones, pointed straight at the sidewalk. I knocked on the door, half expecting no answer. After a few seconds, the door creaked open. It was Natalie. Hoodie again. Those same shoes. She looked at me with this blank expression, like she'd been waiting.
Hey, I said.
Everything all right? She nodded. Yeah. Then she added, You're the one with the smoker. It wasn't a question. I stared at her for a second, and before I could say anything, she looked past me, toward Cheryl's house. You think she's scary, she said. But she's not. My mouth went dry. What do you mean? She shrugged. You guys are all so loud. Always pretending. I just watch. I felt something in my stomach drop. Did you leave something in my yard?
She tilted her head.
Maybe. I glanced past her. The living room was dark behind her, blinds half drawn. Why? She smiled, just barely. Because nobody watches me. Then she closed the door. I stood there for another minute, but I didn't knock again. Back at my house, I pulled every camera, every photo, every clip I had. I made backups, printed frames, labeled everything. Not for the cops.
Not yet. For me.
Because now I knew this wasn't about a neighbor feud. It wasn't about smoke or meat or even the stupid HOA. It was about someone quietly watching the whole time. And none of us had ever noticed her. I still grill every Saturday, just like before. But now, when I lift the lid, I don't just check the meat. I check what's around me. The fence line. The windows. The corners where people think they're not being seen. Because it's not Cheryl I think about anymore. It's the girl who smiled like a secret and said, I just watch. And now, every time I hear a creak in the yard or see a shadow move that shouldn't, I wonder if maybe someone's grilling me.